you will not be reading a lot of books. Okay, you will quit on this thing because it will just become something very tedious and boring. So just do not do it. It's okay to move on to. This action looks highly inappropriate. It feels like I'm milking a cow. But do not blame me, blame the cartoon that gave me this idea. If my voice comes out a little bit disinterested or rough, I apologize for that in advance. The thing is that I'm suffering from cough and cold. So please do consider it and bear with me. Anyway, welcome my dear fellow book nerds to this channel, Heya Books. This is your misfit reader, Talib. And in today's video, we are going to talk about few tips that can help you develop a good reading habit as well as help you read more books. So yeah, most of the people acknowledges this fact that reading is a really good habit. It's an amazing thing. But despite this acknowledgement, sorry for the train honking sound, the thing is my house is in the vicinity of a railway station, and not just any railway station, it's Nagpur railway station, which is the busiest railway route in central India. So this is a sound that you'll be hearing often. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, I was talking about that people do acknowledge this thing that reading is a really good thing, but despite this acknowledgement, not many of them are able to do it. And why is that? Well, it's difficult to say it for an individual, but when we generalize things, we see that people usually come up with three excuses. First one of them is that they do not have time for reading, which is a complete bullshit, because in today's time we have things like audiobooks. Alright. Second excuse that people come up with is that they have tried reading and they did not understand at all what was going on in the book. Basically, their reading comprehension is poor. It can be improved. It is not something to worry about. Third thing is that people say that they tried reading but they found the experience to be really dull and boring, just like this video. And I do not blame them, because when a seasoned reader read a book which isn't meant for them, they go into a reading slump. So it's quite understandable that reading a bad book leads you to not reading anything at all. Anyway, so if you're someone who is suffering from any such problems, this video has potential to help you out. So do stick till the end for the tips that I'm here to give you. Tip number 1, discover your genre. Well, if you're someone who's just planning to get into reading, then it's very important for you to discover your genre. And why is that? As I said earlier in this video, if you're a seasoned reader and if you read a book which isn't meant for you, then it has potential to send you in reading slump. Imagine you're just a beginner and you read a book which isn't meant for you, what impact it can have on you. The chances are you'll read 50 to 100 pages of that book, then you'll close it and will never read it again. And you will not move on to another book for a very long time. So your reading journey will come to a very quick and unexpected end. That's why it's very important for you to know what type of books you'll enjoy reading in the beginning, alright? So yeah, how do you do that? Well, I have made an entire video on this particular topic. It might be popping somewhere here, and if it's not popping here, I'll just share the link in the video. You can check that video out to know how to discover your genre. This brings us to the end of this particular tip. Let's move on to the second one. Tip number 2. Pick up quick and easy read. So if you're a beginner, it's important for you to start with easy books that you'll find easy to understand and that will be fun for you to read. Okay, so read books like Alice in Wonderland, Wonderful Wizards of Oz, Peter Pan, Narnia, or Harry Potter or Hobbit. Okay, I cannot emphasize on this thing enough that do not directly jump onto tomes like Wheel of Time, A Song of Ice and Fire, or some other book just because a series is coming out. Alright, because these hefty tomes uses some very high-ended flowery language which is difficult for beginners to understand. And apart from these, the themes in these books is very complex and layered, which many native speakers find difficult to understand on their first attempt and second read. Alright, that's why I do not directly jump onto these hefty tomes. If you want to read these tomes, know this, that you will eventually get there, okay, if you truly want to read them. But there is a process. In the beginning, you'll have to read books that are easy for you to understand and the books that you'll enjoy reading. Okay, so please do read these books that I've mentioned, like Alice in Wonderland, Wonderful Wizards of Oz and all. And if you think that it's not appropriate for an adult to read a children's book, then you're wrong here, because these books that I mentioned here are culturally very important. Okay, they are one of the finest pieces of literature. And apart from that, these books have some morals that never dies. And there's no shame in reading children's book for an adult. Alright, and then the biggest advantage that you get from reading these books is that you get a feeling of accomplishment. Alright, and when you get that feeling, it motivates you to read more. So the more you read these books, the sooner you'll get to your goal of reading Wheel of Time or some other hefty tomes like Witcher or something. So yeah, start with something that is easy for you to understand and that is quick to read and which is fun for you. Tip number 3. Try reading a book whose adaptation you have already watched. Now many of you might be thinking, why would we do that? We have already watched the adaptation, we know how the story ended. But the thing is, adaptations are always limited by time, money and budget and all those things, whereas books are not. So adaptations fails to show you a lot of things that goes inside a book, and when you read a book with adaptation you have already watched, you'll be surprised to see the number of things and the things that the adaptation failed to show you. So yeah, that's why you should be doing it, but that's not the main reason I'm asking you to read a book whose adaptation you have already watched. Why the hell I'm fumbling again? I speak like Donald Trump sometimes. Well, so yeah, the main reason I'm asking you to do this is because when you have already watched an adaptation, imagining things become much more easier for you. All right, you know how the character looks like, you know how the places looks like, you know how the events turned out to be. All right, so imagining things become much more easy and fun, and you feel more invested in the story and the characters. This is something that I've experienced myself, and one of my friends has experienced too. He was reading a Lord of the Rings a few years ago, and he was like, I'm not enjoying this book because the world is very rich and the characters are confusing. I do not remember which character is called what. So he was like, I can't read it, and he DNF'd the Lord of the Rings. All right, and I was like, no man, you should be reading it. You shouldn't give up on this book. He was like, I'm not understanding this thing. And then I forced him to watch the movies. When he watched the movies, he loved the movies. Then he came back to the books again. He was like, now this was a much better experience, because for some people it's very difficult to imagine things. All right, so if these people watch the adaptation first and then they come to the books, it's much more easier for them to imagine and experience things. But I'm not endorsing that you should always watch adaptation first and then come to books. Okay, books are always better. No one is saying that adaptations are better. Books are better. Adaptation of something that can enhance your experience when it comes to imagining and feeling invested in a story. That's what I was driving at. So yeah, this was the tip number 3 for you. Now moving on to the tip number 4. Tip number 4. Do not try to look up meaning of each and every new word. This is a mistake that a lot of beginners do when they are reading. Okay, whenever they stumble upon a new word, they're like, let me look up the meaning of this new word in the dictionary. And this makes the reading a tedious and laborious process, and it takes the fun out of reading. So do not do it. Even the seasoned readers, avid readers and the native speakers, whenever they stumble upon a new word, they're like, okay, I'm just going to guess the meaning of this word through the context of the sentence, and then I'll move on. I will not look up the meaning of this word in the dictionary. Sometimes when you do not understand the meaning at all, it's okay to look up into the dictionary, but all the time if you keep doing this, you will not be reading a lot of books. Okay, you will quit on this thing because it will just become something very tedious and boring. So just do not do it. It's okay to move on, to just guess the meaning and keep going. Sometimes you have to learn to let go. All right, so yeah, this was the tip number 4, and now let's move on to the next tip. Tip number 5, try to keep books in different format. So if you have book in 3 different format, like you have a physical copy, you have book on the Kindle, and you have the very same book on the audio in the audiobook format, then you'll find that you'll be able to finish that book much more quickly, because the weariness and the boredom that you feel while reading it on a one format can be a little bit toned down when you switch the format. Okay, if you're reading a book on Kindle and after reading 5 chapters you feel weird out, you can switch to the physical copy of that book, and you'll find that the weirdness that you felt while reading on Kindle is not affecting your reading experience while you are reading the physical book. And same will be the case when you will be listening to that book in the audio format. This way you'll be able to read a book quickly, much more quickly, and you'll be able to read more books. So this was the tip number 5. Try to read books in different formats, and try to keep books in different formats. Tip number 6, start listening to audiobooks. Now many readers feels like listening to audiobooks is like cheating on their reading habit, and I can completely understand where they're coming from. I once held that belief, but now that has changed, because what is the purpose of listening and reading? The purpose of listening and reading is basically same. They are there to provide your brain with information. They are there to just basically pass information to your brain. So it doesn't matter whether that information is being passed through listening or reading. Okay, accumulation of information is what matters here. So if you're feeling guilty about listening to audiobooks, then it's just a very stupid thing to do. Okay, you can feel that way, but you are the one who is missing out here, because audiobooks are really lifesaver when you're occupied. Okay, when you're busy doing your chores, when you're busy driving, and when your ears are not occupied, you can listen to audiobooks. This way you can fit more books into your life, right? So yeah, do not feel guilty about it, but still, if you want to feel guilty about it, be my guest. What can I say about that? But yeah, that was the tip number 6. Listen to audiobooks. So these are some tips that might help you to develop a reading habit or help you to read more. But these are not the only tips that I wanted to share with you people. There are some more tips that I'm going to share now, but I will not dwell deep into them because I'm in a hurry and I have to go somewhere. I hope you people understand. I do not like to end videos in this manner, but I do not have any options. So yeah, I'll just briefly touch upon these tips. So yeah, the other tip that I have for you is always keep a book handy, like either in a physical format or in a PDF format or in an audio format. So wherever you find time, like on a bus stop or on bus or in a kitchen, you can always read the book. Make a reading schedule, like dedicate at least 15 to 20 minutes of your day to reading, and during that time kill all the distraction. Tell your family member do not disturb you and close all the door. Okay, just dedicate that time to reading. Apart from this, be a part of a reading community. Okay, what happens when you become a part of a reading community is you want to contribute to the activities that going on over there, and you want to contribute to the conversation, but you cannot do that without reading books. So being a part of a reading community is a really good motivational factor. So do that. So these were the some tips that I had for you if you want to develop a good reading, if you want to develop reading habit, and if you want to read more. If you find this video helpful in any way, please subscribe to the channel, share the video, and like the video as well. I'll see you next time in my next video. Until then, my fellow book nerds, keep reading.